tell me a little bit about kind of the history of Egypt. Tell us a little bit about, you're obviously born there, live over there, and tell us a little bit about your history with your dad in Mubarak.
Yeah, I've been in the States almost 20 years. I came to do my training here in the States and do also the specialty in OB/GYN and do some research on cervical cancer. So I lived almost half of my life in Egypt and half of my life in the United States. I was born actually from, my dad was an officer in the Egyptian Air Force, and he went all the way to become a general. So he was one of the generals also under the President Mubarak when he was the head of the Air Force. So I know President Mubarak. We don't know him personally, but I know from my talking with my dad. He was actually, let me explain to you a little bit my background, and then I'll tell you what my feeling about what's going on. My brother also actually is also close to a colonel Air Force officer and a surgeon in the Air Force in Egypt. So we are coming all from a military family. I did also 2 years of military service in Egyptian Air Force. Okay. So my feeling about what's going on, definitely the last 10-15 years in Egypt, a lot of people were educated and they didn't find a lot of jobs. Okay, very well educated, but no jobs at all. So all these people, they got together, they wanted to do a demonstration in 2008. Also they gathered from the Facebook, but in 2008 it didn't work pretty well. This year it worked very well, actually, because they collaborated much better on the Facebook and Twitter, and they wanted really to go out and demonstrate. They didn't really want to throw out the government yet at the beginning, but they want to demonstrate to improve the quality of life of the Egyptian people, to decrease the corruption, to have a little bit of more say in the decision making of the government. So this is the main goal of the beginning of the people who started in January 25th. Okay. After this, everybody joined the demonstrator. They started first with the well-educated people, then everybody joined. The Muslim Brotherhood joined, and which I think they can play a very good role actually in the build-up of Egypt, because they are. If they became a very good political party, they can play a very good role in the development of Egypt.
So it wasn't a surprise to hear when the protest started? It wasn't a surprise to you that was going on?
No, it was cooking for a while. Like I told you, from 3 years ago, they wanted to do that, but they failed to do it. Maybe they went a couple of thousand, very less. But this time it was really with 100,000 at the beginning. And well educated, which makes a big difference because it makes the demonstration peaceful. So you don't have a lot of anybody non-educated or less educated, so they make it less troublemaker. The demonstration actually, like I told you, started with the well-educated and then included everybody. The parties of Egypt, especially the opposition parties, they're not as strong in that. They came out after the demonstration, 2 days or 3 days after the demonstration, and the Muslim Brother, they came out. But I think the main people who did it, the well-educated without jobs, okay, are waiting for jobs from the government. These are the main people who started it, actually.
I mean, how did your father explain to you what was going on, or family and friends still over there?
I think at the beginning the government didn't handle it properly, though. Okay, they thought there are a small amount of people that they can really shut them down with maybe taking some of them into custody, attacking the others. So they didn't. It was not only a couple of thousand; they were really 100,000 of people demonstrating. And then, especially after they cut the internet and the phone service, the people became more angry because they cannot communicate with others. So they came in the street. Actually, cutting the phone service and the internet, it was a worse decision the government made. If it was really cut by the government, they made it very difficult for the people to communicate. So they came in the street. It made the demonstration worse. Okay, so I think it was not a good move from the government to do that. The corruption actually, and corruption, it trickles down. Okay, from definitely the administration all the way. Still, we can find people in Egypt, the regular people, they're corrupted because they are used to the system. And the system is not only from Mubarak, I think it's still from Sadat and from Nasser. Because at the time of Nasser we had corruption, the time of Sadat we had corruption, and the time of Mubarak had corruption. But so I think from the corruption increased a little bit the last 20 years. Okay, and it trickles down, like I said, trickle down from the big administration all the way to the people. So in order really to improve the country the next 5, 10, 20 years, they have to start a very clean system from the base, start educating the people from the maybe kindergarten all the way until they become a graduate of the university, that really the system has to improve better in in the treating each other, in talking with each other, in the freedom of speech.
So you agreed that, I mean, change was needed and that he needed to step down?
There is no doubt change needed 10, 15 years ago, not really recently. It should have been done, as my dad even told me that he should have been, like I told you, he worked with him personally, and he told me it should have been done 15 years ago because of the age. Also, so when you reach a certain age, sometimes you cannot make a very sound decision for the country. You think really you are doing the right thing, but over 75, 80, it's not really, you cannot really run a country like Egypt.
Well, talk a little bit about your dad and his relationship with Mubarak. Talk a little bit about when he worked with them, and kind of describe the kind of person he was or kind of leader then.
In the Air Force, definitely he did a good job, but he was a fighter and then he was the head of the Air Force. He went through all the wars. My dad also, he went through all the wars with Israel, even including the revolution and all the wars with Israel. So when he was the head of the Air Force, he was doing a very good job. And then he was the vice president of Anwar Sadat. He was still doing also a good job. I think once he stepped down to be a president, the first 5, 10 years, he really wanted to change a lot in Egypt. And then after this, maybe, I don't know what happened, how the corruption started, maybe he was surrounded by the wrong advisor. They gave him the wrong advice. But he was not a very bad person, though. He was a good person. I think he had good intention to build the country the first 10 years. Okay? So there was a lot of projects. Some of projects, they were corrupted. Some projects, they really succeeded. So actually, there was a lot of new projects that was built in Egypt the last 20, 30 years when he was in charge. I think the main problem is really the advisor and the surrounding people. He kept the same staff all these years. He didn't change the Minister of Defense. The Minister of Defense also, he graduated with my dad in the same year. So still, at the age of 73, it's still difficult to be Minister of Defense. Also, the majority of the minister, the head of the party, of the Democratic Party, is the same. He never changed. So also, I'm not saying they are bad guys, but really we need to change to have new blood, people trained outside in the West, with new ideas. Because democracy, we cannot apply the democracy of the West to Egypt. It's very difficult. You have to tailor the democracy in order to fit the Egyptian people. It's very difficult because of the mentality, a lot of factors, not only the mentality, the culture, the different religions there also. So it's very important to tailor. In Egypt, we are extremely religious, either Islam or Christian. We're very religious, we practice our religion very well. So really, if you want to apply the democracy, you tailor the democracy to fit the Egyptian people. So it's not really Western democracy. You cannot just apply it straight to the Egyptian people.
Well, and talk a little bit about, kind of how this is going to affect here locally. Now, obviously, you're an American now. You've been living here, and knowing that we were allies with Egypt and everything, and now that a lot of change is going on, how for people who may be watching this or watch it, how does it affect us locally, or does it? I mean, how does it the connection?
No, let me tell you. Also, the perception of the Egyptian people in what happened, they didn't like very much that the administration jumped right away to say to Mubarak to out Mubarak. So it's not really the best because they know him for 30 years. And I'm sure they had connection in a lot of things. With still the army, all the army of the Egyptian army is trained here in the States. A lot of them, they are trained here in the States. And we still buy the majority of the weapon from the United States. So definitely they didn't like that he jumped right away to out Mubarak. Even though, yes, Mubarak, he's old, he has good points and he has bad points. He has more bad points than good points. Okay? But they didn't still like that he jumped to interfere in the internal politics of Egypt. They wanted the Egyptian people to take care of it. That's why I didn't like Mrs. Clinton or President Obama to come and say, just get out. So it was not a very well-liked statement, which I can see from the news, not really from my parents. I think in the States, if the States maybe the best thing that the States can do, they can decrease the help to Egypt because they've been giving them aid for the last 30 years, but the aid was gone completely, was not really invested properly. So I think to cut the aid is not a bad decision because Egypt has a lot of resources they can easily get up by themselves. They don't need really aid from the United States. So I think this is the best relation they can do is to decrease the aid over the couple of years and tell them, hey, we're finishing the aid. Yes, we can help you with technology, we can help you with education, we can help you with other things, implement things like that. But really American aid, I don't think has really needed much because Egypt has a lot of resources that they should invest and they should push the government to invest their own resources. Like aiding a small child to do something also the same story. So we prefer no more aid, I think so.
Do you think that's something that they'll end up doing, or you think that's just something they need
I
to
think
do?
so. I think they should, because really They have a resource of the tourism is the highest country in the world visited by tourists. The Suez Canal has huge income every year. You have a lot of other incomes. You have a lot of human resources. A lot of people that want to work there. So I don't think really Egypt needs much aid at all. From what I see in Egypt, I don't think so.
Well, obviously, I mean, for the last 2 weeks and all this time, and obviously you've probably been following the news constantly, watching all this. I mean, watching it, I mean, kind of talk to us about how much you probably were keeping connected with what was going on over there.
Actually, I was watching every day all the news. I'm not biased with any news. I was watching, like I was telling you, the British news, the French news a lot. Al Jazeera I didn't watch much at all because they are extremely biased. But I watched all the other, like the BBC Arabic, I was watching it. The Euro News, I was watching it. Also some of the local Egyptian news, actually, at the beginning, the first 2 weeks, they were very pro Mubarak. And then once Mubarak resigned, they stepped down, they changed completely, and they started inviting the demonstrators to talk and see what we can help the country. The main thing I want to say about this, we don't want the people who really use the opportunities, or the opportunistic people who really travel quickly to Egypt to see if they can get the presidency. Like Mr. Bradley, he's definitely his Nobel laureate, and he's very well, but I don't know really if he's the best person to take the presidency there. Or Ahmed Zuhair also, he's a very good scientist in the States, and another Nobel laureate, but probably can help in education the system and fixing the system and help with the improvement of the science, but not as a president. I think president has to come from the Egyptian who really was born there and worked in the public life there, and a guy without any mistakes at all, so nobody can complain about him. My only worry that every day now we have demonstration. For example, anybody who really doesn't like their boss now will demonstrate. Because the corruption, like I was telling you, the corruption is everywhere. It's not only in the government, in all the government section, in the business, in the private business also. So definitely you're going to find people demonstrating every day because their boss is not treating them properly. So probably they have to put the limit on that and see how they can fix the system from the start, from the zero. I think it has to go, like I read in the US news, that the system has to go from zero first and then build up everything.